Welcome to the show, everyone. Today, we're obviously going to be talking about a pretty important issue in sports today. Now, this this topic itself, this article itself is from July 2021. And then we can refer back to Simone Biles during the Olympics, right? Well, it's actually a pretty important topic when it comes to not just like the elite athletes, right? We can talk about kids these days too, and the effect of sports and the role that the mental health plays on our youth. Because the professional athletes, they're in the limelight, right? They're on camera, they're on ESPN, they're on all these social media apps, and you see them all over the place. You know, the youth will only be brought to light if it's something that goes viral on social media or on YouTube or something like that, right? So this needs to be discussed, and I'm going to kind of talk about it a bit, not so much to kind of stir up anything, but just throwing it out there that we overlook mental health and the mental health of athletes and athletes specifically. So one of the things that is important to know is that when we talk about like Simone Biles is already known as the greatest at her craft, the greatest ever at her craft. So when she gets in a situation where it's not beneficial for her to move forward, that should be accepted by us, right? Because she has a future that's reliant on her ability. And if she's unable to do it in the future, then it's kind of taking away the risk reward is kind of being thrown at her here. So it's like, all right, let me try to fight through this, but what's my future going to be like if I do? And everyone loves the idea of Carrie Strug back in those, I believe, 96 Olympics, right? And it was great and everybody loved it. Now, what did that do for Carrie Strug's future in gymnastics? Did she have a future after that? And we can say, you know what, these athletes, they chose this life, they chose to be famous, they chose to be athletes. And let's be honest, it's gymnastics. When you're in gymnastics, more than likely she was probably put in, and most gymnasts were probably put in from like the age of like 3 to 4. When you're 3 and 4 years old, are you really like, oh, this is gonna be my life? You're not going out asking, for the most part. I can't speak in absolutes, but for the most part, you're not going out saying that this is what you want to do with your life for the rest of your life, that you want to go through the pain and inappropriate situations that obviously the gymnasts have been through in the past couple of decades that we've heard about, right? The mental health of athletes it's getting to where we are not seeing them as human anymore. And that's important to note. And that's important to throw out there, is that they should be giving up their mental health, their physical health for us. And that's not the case. Simone Biles made the right choice, not only for Simone Biles, but for future athletes. That it's okay to not risk your future for a moment, right? A moment of fame, a moment of something that, at that moment, not ever going to come back, where she's going to have an opportunity to do that again. But she is, right? There is a future, right? She didn't reduce her odds after trying to compete further after an injury. We talk about mental health. We're not even talking, I'm not even bringing up concussions yet, am I? Right? The pain and torture that NFL players put their bodies through for the NFL, for the fractional odd of making it to the NFL. Right? Though the people they don't talk about are the practice players, who get very little money for what they do, who get to get beaten up during practice by elite athletes and are not guaranteed paychecks. They do this for the sport. There's mental health that's involved. There's physical health. There's future health that's involved for these athletes. And we're promoting them going against that. We're promoting them going against their better judgment of this is not right. Naomi Osaka has been a great push forward in this. I mean, Simone and Naomi Osaka both have been a great push forward to really promote the idea that, you know, mental health is important, even if it's professional athletes. Now, a lot of people are not going to think that, but it's important to know that. There's so many things. I mean, let's look at former NBA players, former NFL players who went through the struggle that it was that they put their body through, that they emotionally went through in their profession, only to be spit out the other end and just left on the street, right? And those that are know sports well you already know the NBA player I'm talking about, right? Homeless on the streets. There's pictures of him all over. It's a sad situation, right? But it's okay because he had his chance, right? He was an NBA player. He made lots of money. He had his opportunity, and he spit it out himself. No, society spit him out. So on their website, Newport Academy has this 10 scientifically validated mental benefits of sports. Now, I'm not going to try to throw them under the bus or anything like that. And these things right here are obviously, we're going to go through them, obviously very important issues that we need to talk about. And the likelihood that maybe they do it right. Maybe they do it right at this place. And I know nothing about Newport Academy. I don't know what they do. I just found this list and I thought it was important that I share this. But when you do things right from a coaching perspective, these are the things that should come of it. Number one, exercise positively impacts levels of serotonin, a chemical that helps regulate mental health and stimulates the neurotransmitter norepinephrine, which improves mood. Exactly. Many of us already know this. Like, this is just something natural that we know, that we just feel better. Like our mental state is just better after some exercise, right? Even if it's just some light exercise, it improves our mood, right? Sometimes we exercise to get some frustration out, things like that. Obvious, right? Number two, physical activity releases endorphins, the body's natural happy chemicals, and reduces levels of the stress hormone cortisol. Again, this is true. Now, I like to point out, though, that they use, you know, this layman's term of happy chemicals as a means of kind of throwing it at you in a nicer way, right? And they're not trying to be too scientific about the whole process and things like that. But again, this is a very factual thing when it comes to exercise, and we know that, right? This is exercise. Keep that in mind. They're talking about exercise in these two, right? Not necessarily just sports, exercise, right? Number three, sports are associated with lower rates of stress, anxiety, depression, and suicidal behavior. Now we're getting into some topics that you can honestly look at them and say, well, that depends, right? Lower rates of stress, sports by just being a part of it is stressful. There is anxiety involved. There is depression involved. There is suicidal behavior that comes from sports. Let's not just even talk about CTE, right? That stems straight from the NFL, not always, of course, but from football, right? Stress and anxiety and depression can come from a result of sport, but why? Not from the mere act of playing sports, but from how we as coaches approach sports and expect the kids to approach sports. It becomes stressful when the idea is to win. It becomes anxiety driven when it's about just accomplishing a task. There is depression when you don't do those things. And then suicidal behavior comes after that, right? Now that's to an extreme, because that's only going to be the kids who take too much of it to heart, and where it's just a very bad situation, right? The stress, the anxiety, the depression, some of it that just builds up in some athletes, and they start thinking about that. Number 4, participation in team sports reduces the risk of teen substance abuse and other reckless behaviors. Now, here's the crazy thing about this one. Sometimes there's an entitlement with youth athletes, and with entitlement comes bad decision making, poor decision making, the idea that they're invincible, that it's going to be okay if they do wrong things because coach is going to let them on the team because they still produce. Those number 3 and 4 are important to note, because it's very plain to see that it, again, depends, right? It depends on the climate that you set as a coach. If you set the atmosphere, the climate, the motivational climate to be of winning, getting the task done, or you're out, you're on the bench, then you're going against what the purpose of sports is, what they're supposed to be learning from sports. Number 5, team sports enhance resilience, empathy, confidence, and empowerment. It should. This should say team sports should enhance resilience, empathy, confidence, and empowerment. When you have a motivational climate that only promotes winning, it's a matter of, can I do it? Yes or no? If I can't, I should quit. I should blame somebody. It's somebody else's fault. It's not mine. Blah, 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 right? If you beat the crap out of another team, there is no empathy. That's their fault for not being as good as you, right? Confidence and empowerment should come when you instill in them the ability to do their best, because you can't control winning and losing. You have to have confidence that you're going to show up and do your best. You don't know if you're going to win. You don't. But you know you're going to show up and give it your best. And that's part of the tough things with sports in our society today. And when we have that approach of we don't think we can win, then of course you're going to lose. But if you go in with the approach of, we know we can beat them, and then you lose, then you have this mentality of, I can't believe we lost to them. They sucked. They have also been shown to increase the executive functioning, creativity, cognitive development, and self-regulation. Again, if it's done appropriately. Improve teamwork and social responsibility. Again, if it's done appropriately, if the motivational climate is done appropriately. We can see teamwork not working out if we're having too much competitions for positions, right? Because what's going to end up happening is they're going to be so competitive for a starting spot, or just a starting or a backup spot on the team, that it's not a matter of, I need to play harder or better than another person to get more playing time. I need to figure out how to get them out of my way. Whenever it's just about winning, then you have the win at all cost mentality, right? And then think of that mom whose daughter's trying to make their cheerleading team, and then they put a hit out of the other girl that's trying out. Win at all cost, right? Again, if it's done properly. Better well-being for teens with disabilities. This is a very good thing. But one of the things that this needs to be noted is that this is just saying sports in general, exercise in general. Yes, there should be inclusion for anyone with any type of ability, right? If you're different, if you have a different type of ability, you figure it out. When you're the coach, you figure it out, and we'll get them playing time. We'll get them out on the field. We'll get them wherever they need to be a part, right? So some research out there, it's fairly, I can't say it's old research. It's pretty much from the 80s and up. Um, oh, Richard DC and Ryan, or Richard Ryan and DC, Ryan and DC. I remember their last names. Right, they have what's known as self-determination theory. Right, self-determination theory is if you have these three categories, if you promote these three categories, then you're setting a motivational climate that's going to promote success, not winning, success. Right. So that's going to be competency, right? They got to know what they're doing on the field. Honestly, you got to be a coach, and you got to coach them up to know how to play the game properly. Right. So they have their competency now. Right. There has to be a autonomy. They have to want to be there. They have to have the want. They have to choose to be there. If they don't really want to be there, they're not going to give you 100%. And then there's relatedness, being a part of the team. Being a part of a team, finding a connection with your teammates around you, and knowing that you're part of a bigger group than you ever thought of. When you have those three things, you promote a motivational climate that simply promotes improvement at all times. Right? Winning and losing is not part of that. Improvement at all times is part of that. Right? So if you show up to practice every single day with the mentality that we're going to beat so and so team this week, we're going to beat so and so team this week, you might not. If you show up every single day to practice with the mentality of I need to get better today, I'm going to work hard to get better today, you will, every single day. The bar you set for winning may be too high, maybe too low, but the bar you set for improving every day is based on your natural ability, the ability, and the work you put forward, right? And that makes that bar higher than your goal. Maybe it's higher or closer to your goal than you thought, right? Maybe it's a team that's undefeated and you need to beat them, but y'all are a 6-4 team and they're 10-0 or whatever. Maybe it just gets you that much closer. You know for a fact that you can lose a game and play very well, and you can win a game and play very poorly. Right? When you promote a motivational climate that's all about improvement every single day and not about winning, the improvement actually gains stronger than with the other way around. Team sports, as well as other outdoor activities, gets teams outside so they can experience the benefits of time in nature. Yes, right, but that goes for you can be fishing and all that kind of stuff. But right, we want them out there. We want them to do these things. This is a very good point right here. Sleep improves when teens are physically active, which is important because sleep is essential for maintaining mental health. Exactly, this is a great point right here. It really is. Now, having said that, those of you from Texas already know that after a football game, what do you go do? Right? You're not getting any of this after a football game. You're too pumped up. A win or a loss, you're too pumped up. You're not getting any sleep. Right? But you would think that kids would get more sleep. But kids are going to school. They're working through school, which is roughly 35, 40 hours a week for them just for school alone. And then they go to practice, and then they have games, then have homework. So, I'm a teacher. I'm not a teacher who assigns homework. I'm going to tell you that right now. But a teacher that assigns homework, yes, you need extra practice. Mind you, sports extracurricular practices after school because it's separate from the curriculum that they should be learning in school. All right. So if we give them homework outside of school, they have to take extra time out of their day to complete this homework. Now, there's going to be times where it's kind of like a non-negotiable, like it kind of has to be done. But when it's a daily, like where they're getting 2-3 hours of work a day that they have to do on top of their football, basketball, track, volleyball, softball schedule, Now think of teachers and coaches. Like teachers will work 40 hours bell to bell, and then maybe do 15, 20 hours extra work a week, grading papers, doing things like that. And then teachers will complain, right? I'm a teacher, I know about all this extra work they got to do outside of their contract hours. Coaches will coach, you know, anywhere from an extra 20 to extra 60 hours a week. I once worked 100 hours a week, 40 teaching, 60 coaching during football season, right? But you get these kids, teenagers, they're kids, working 40 hours a week for school and then doing their 20 hours a week for football. And then on top of that, are putting in 10 to 15 to 20 hours a week for homework. They don't have time to sit, right? We know it's stressful on us as adults when we have to bring work home, but we're purposely doing it sometimes to kids. And we don't realize that that is a drain on their mental health, right? When we want them to learn calculus, we want them to learn, biology, we want them to learn all these things. We want them to learn all this important stuff. But the timeline to learn things it's there's no like starting line and ending line. There's no finish line for them to say this is when you're required to learn it. I don't care about these tests that kids have to take. As a teacher, we don't want them either, right? There is no timeline for learning. You can learn at all times, right? Mental health, training them to approach mental health in a positive way and taking care of themselves and their mental health is more important than learning about biology. The biology will come. It will. And probably more so if we stop putting pressure on them like that. And yes, you could say kids are soft and we're making kids soft these days. It's not that. It's not a matter of that. Science has proven we know how to do things better now. We do. And we just refuse to do it because we don't want to change. And when you don't change, you get left behind. When athletes make it to the pros, when they make it those scholarships, yes, they might have like a lot of talent. Yes, they might have a lot of big support group, all that kind of thing, right? The support group is more beneficial to their mental health in some cases. But when you really think about it, what gets them from the age of 3 when mom and dad put them in T-ball to the age of 21, 22 when they're making it to the pros? We'll say 21. That's 18 years of playing that sport to make it to the pros. It takes a little bit of luck. It takes hard work, but there's a lot of people working hard. There's a lot of people with talent. The idea is that you just didn't get injured as much. You just didn't get, you were more resilient naturally, genetically, that you were able to take a lot more of the stuff that was beating down on you mentally. But at some point, people break. They might break when they're 14 and drop out. That's when 75% of kids drop out of sports. They might just call it quits when they graduate. They might call it quits first year in college sports. I've seen a home run leader on a varsity softball team quit first year college softball. Why? She was being spoon-fed all growing up because she was incredibly talented, but never had any pushback because she was just gifted, so she became entitled. And the idea of working hard didn't ever come to her. And then when she gets to college softball and everyone else is talented too, doesn't know how to work hard, right? The character traits that we should be teaching in youth sports is not about how to, play favorites with the athletes that are better than everybody else. And say, if I'm better than everybody else, the coach is going to treat me better. That's not what we should be teaching. no matter what the ability, the skill level, character traits of teamwork and resilience and responsibility and well-being, empathy, confidence, empowerment, everything that you see on here, that's what should be promoted. When you promote that first, instead of like the ability level and the skill level, that's when we get to a point where, yes, the cream of the crop is still going to rise, but you're bringing everybody up with them. You're bringing everybody up with them. Those athletes that were natural athletes, that girl that was a home run leader would still be a home run leader. But the only thing now, when she got to your first year of college ball, she's going to know how to work hard. She's going to know how to step up when the odds are against her, when everyone's as good as her. She's not going to shut down whenever she's no longer the best player on the team. And that's what you want. But the only thing is, if you do it the other way, you're just promoting that one kid to get to that spot with the way I'm talking about, right? Promoting a good motivational climate. You're bringing everybody up, and maybe they don't make it, and maybe those same kids make it up top, but they leave your team in a better spot. Everyone does, right? The law of averages just rises together, right? The ones at the top are going to stay at the top. They got that talent. They got those genetics that gave them the ability to do so. And you know what? I think I've said this in a previous video. Maybe one doesn't make it, and maybe a kid that shouldn't have made it because of that different approach, right? There's a chance. Well, all in all, if everyone's being picked up together, they're all going to rise at the same rate, right? You might have that team average at a 6, but now you get this team average at an 8, right? As opposed to having that 1 at a 10 and everyone staying down at a 4. Just something to talk about, guys. I don't know. I kind of got on this stick the other day with my college class, and wanted to throw this out there. Talk about it in the chat if you want to. Give me some ideas for other topics that maybe you want to listen to, and we'll talk about that. And until next time, guys. See you later.